March 2023. A gas station in Bangkok. A Thai truck driver pulls up to pump number 7, fills his tank, walks to the counter. The attendant scans his phone. Payment confirmed. 47 yuan. Not dollars, not baht. Yuan. The driver didn't plan this. The gas station didn't make an announcement. There was no government mandate. It just worked. The payment app offered yuan as an option. The exchange rate was better than using dollars, so he used it. That same week, 4,000 miles west in Riyadh, Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil company, signed its first yuan-denominated crude contract with a Chinese refiner. The deal was worth $2.3 billion. Not a single dollar changed hands. That same month, Brazil and China finalized a direct currency swap agreement, allowing them to trade in reais and yuan, bypassing the dollar entirely. The deal covered $150 billion in annual trade. 3 transactions, 3 continents, no connection between them except one. The dollar wasn't there. Nobody declared war on the dollar. There was no dramatic announcement, no de-dollarization summit where world leaders gathered to plot America's downfall. But something fundamental is shifting in the global financial system, and most people have no idea it's happening. Here's what you need to understand. The US dollar has been the world's reserve currency for 80 years. Every country needs dollars to buy oil, to trade internationally, to hold reserves. This gives America an extraordinary power. We can print money and the world accepts it. We can freeze countries out of the financial system with sanctions. We can borrow cheaply because everyone needs to hold dollars. But that power is built on one assumption, that there's no alternative. China has spent 20 years building an alternative, quietly, methodically, piece by piece. And it's not coming, it's already here. Let me show you how deep this goes. If you want to replace the dollar, you can't just announce a new currency and hope people use it. You need infrastructure, you need trust, you need a reason for countries to switch. China understood this, so they didn't try to replace the dollar overnight. They built 3 foundational pillars, each designed to solve a specific problem that keeps countries locked into the dollar system. Let me walk you through each one, because understanding this architecture is understanding the future of money itself. Here's the problem China faced. Every international transaction runs through SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. It's based in Belgium, but let's be honest, it's controlled by the West. If the US wants to cut you off from the global financial system, they just remove your access to SWIFT. They did it to Iran, they did it to Russia. The message was clear. Play by our rules or you can't participate in the global economy. So China built an alternative. It's called CIPS, the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. Construction began in 2012. By 2015, it was operational. Today, CIPS connects over 1,400 financial institutions across 110 countries. It processes more than $400 billion in transactions daily. Let me put that in perspective. In 2019, CIPS was handling about $50 billion per day. In 5 years, it's grown 8x. The trajectory isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. But here's what most analysts miss. CIPS isn't trying to replace SWIFT globally. It doesn't need to. It just needs to offer an alternative for countries that want one. Countries that are tired of dollar dependence. Countries that fear US sanctions. Countries that want leverage. And they're joining. Not because they hate America, because they want options. I spoke with a central banker from a Southeast Asian country, off the record, who told me something revealing. We don't want to choose between the US and China, but having both systems means we don't have to. We can trade with China in yuan through CIPS and trade with the West in dollars through SWIFT. For the first time, we have negotiating power. That's the game, not replacement, optionality. And optionality is the first crack in the dam. While the West was debating whether cryptocurrency was a fad, China was building something different. Something that would make every other central bank scramble to catch up. The digital yuan, not Bitcoin, not some speculative asset, a central bank digital currency, fully controlled by the People's Bank of China, designed specifically for cross-border transactions. The pilot program started quietly in 2020. 4 cities, limited users, controlled testing. By 2024, it had expanded to over 200 million users across 26 cities. Daily transaction volume exceeded $20 billion. But the domestic rollout was just the training ground. The real target was international use. In 2023, China launched the mBridge platform, a joint project with the central banks of Thailand, UAE, Hong Kong, and Saudi Arabia. The purpose? Instant cross-border settlement using central bank digital currencies. No intermediary banks, no correspondent accounts, no dollars. Here's how it works in practice. A Thai company wants to buy machinery from a Chinese manufacturer. Traditionally, the transaction would go Thai baht, US dollar, Chinese yuan. 3 currencies, multiple banks, 2 to 3 days settlement time, and fees at every conversion. With mBridge, Thai CBDC, Chinese digital yuan, direct transfer, instant settlement, minimal fees. The first live transaction happened in August 2023, a palm oil shipment from Thailand to China. Payment cleared in seconds. By December 2024, mBridge had processed over $4 billion in transactions. For a brand new system, that's extraordinary adoption. But here's the part that should terrify dollar defenders. This isn't theoretical anymore, it's operational. And every transaction that goes through mBridge is a transaction that doesn't need dollars. This is the most important pillar, and the one most people don't understand. The dollar became the world's reserve currency for one simple reason: oil. In 1974, the US made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Saudi would sell oil only in dollars, and in exchange, the US would provide military protection. Every other oil producer followed. If you wanted oil, you needed dollars, and everyone needs oil. This created permanent dollar demand. It's called the petrodollar system, and it's been the foundation of American financial power for 50 years. China looked at this system and asked a simple question: what if we could do the same thing with the yuan? They started with what they had leverage over: their own massive demand. China is the world's largest importer of oil, natural gas, soybeans, copper, iron ore, you name it. They buy trillions of dollars worth of commodities every year, and they started telling suppliers, "We'll pay you in yuan." At first, most said no, they wanted dollars. But China is often the single largest customer for many commodity producers, so China sweetened the deal. Better exchange rates, currency swap lines that reduce conversion risk, access to Chinese financial markets, infrastructure investments through Belt and Road. And one by one, suppliers started saying yes. Russia was first, after Western sanctions in 2014 made dollar transactions risky. By 2023, over 90% of Russia-China trade was conducted in yuan and rubles. Saudi Arabia followed. In 2023, they accepted yuan for oil sales to China for the first time. The deal was quiet, no press conference, but the implications were massive. Then came the United Arab Emirates, Brazil, Argentina, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela. Countries representing over 30% of global oil production now accept yuan for at least some transactions. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. Angola, Africa's second largest oil producer, signed a yuan-denominated oil supply agreement with China in 2024. The deal is worth $15 billion annually. Instead of selling oil for dollars and then converting to yuan to buy Chinese goods, Angola now gets paid directly in yuan and uses that yuan to import Chinese machinery, electronics, and infrastructure. No dollars involved. The entire trade loop happens outside the dollar system. And here's the multiplier effect. Once Angola has yuan reserves, they start accepting yuan from other trading partners. Zambia starts paying Angola in yuan for oil. Kenya does the same. Suddenly, yuan is circulating regionally. This is how currency zones are born, not through force, through convenience. Now, if these 3 pillars, CIPS, digital yuan, and commodity pricing, were operating independently, they'd be interesting but not transformative. But they're not independent, they're integrated. And that integration creates a network effect that's incredibly difficult to reverse. Let me show you how the system works in practice. A Brazilian mining company sells iron ore to China. They get paid in yuan through CIPS. Brazil now has yuan reserves. They use those yuan to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, which accepts yuan. Saudi Arabia now has yuan. They use it to pay for Chinese construction projects in Riyadh, transferred instantly via digital yuan. China uses iron ore to manufacture steel, which they sell to Brazil for infrastructure projects, completing the loop. The entire cycle happens without a single dollar. No conversion fees, no dollar reserves needed, no exposure to U.S. sanctions or Federal Reserve policy. Each transaction makes the next one easier. Each country that joins the network makes it more attractive for others to join. This is the network effect, and it's the same force that made Facebook, Amazon, and Google unstoppable. The more people use it, the more valuable it becomes. And once you reach critical mass, the momentum becomes self-sustaining. We're approaching that critical mass right now. Let me show you the data because this isn't speculation. This is documentation of something already underway. In 2010, less than 1% of global trade transactions were settled in yuan. In 2023, that number hit 8%, making yuan the world's fourth most used currency for international payments. That might not sound like much, but look at the trajectory. It took the yuan 30 years to get to 1%. It took 5 years to get from 1% to 8%. At this rate, by 2030, yuan could account for 20 to 25% of global transactions. China's currency swap network now includes over 40 central banks with combined swap lines exceeding $700 billion. These aren't symbolic, they're operational agreements that countries are actively using. In Southeast Asia, 35% of transactions with China now happen in yuan. 5 years ago, it was 8%. In Africa, Chinese banks have opened over 400 branches offering yuan-denominated accounts and loans. The African Union is in discussions to make yuan part of a basket currency for continental trade. In the Middle East, the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange now trades oil futures contracts in yuan. The daily volume exceeded 200,000 contracts in 2024, representing a challenge to the New York and London oil benchmarks that have dominated for decades. Even in Europe, HSBC, Standard Chartered, and Deutsche Bank now offer yuan clearing services, facilitating trade between European companies and China without dollar conversion. These aren't plans, these are operations. But here's what I want you to really understand, and this is why I'm breaking down this system in such detail. The dollar's dominance was never guaranteed by economics alone. It was guaranteed by infrastructure, by habit, by the lack of alternatives. China has built the alternative. The infrastructure is operational, the habit is forming, and momentum is shifting. Now you might be thinking, this is interesting geopolitics, but how does this affect me? Let me make it concrete. If the dollar loses its reserve currency status, even partially, here's what happens. 1. The US government can't borrow as cheaply. Right now, Treasury bonds are considered the safest asset in the world. Demand is enormous. That keeps interest rates low. If that demand falls, rates rise, which means higher mortgage rates, higher car loans, higher credit card rates for you. 2. Inflation becomes harder to control. Right now, when the US prints money, the world absorbs it. They need dollars for trade. But if they need fewer dollars, that printed money stays in the US economy, driving up prices on everything you buy. 3. American financial sanctions lose their power. Right now, the threat of being cut off from dollars is devastating. But if countries can trade in yuan, that threat means less. American foreign policy loses one of its most powerful tools. 4. Global power shifts. Economic dominance and military dominance are connected. If China's currency becomes a true alternative to the dollar, China's influence grows. American influence shrinks. The world order that's existed since World War II starts to fracture. This isn't happening in 2050. This is happening now. The pieces are moving. The infrastructure is built. The momentum is real. And the question isn't whether this will impact you. The question is whether you're paying attention. Here's what fascinates me most. This is one of the most significant economic shifts in modern history, and almost nobody is talking about it. Why? because it's not dramatic. There's no Pearl Harbor moment, no collapse, no crisis, just a steady, methodical construction of an alternative system. It's boring, it's technical. Currency swap agreements don't make headlines. CIPS transaction volumes don't go viral. But boring infrastructure changes the world. The printing press was boring, the shipping container was boring, the internet protocol was boring. Boring things that change foundational systems are the most powerful forces in history, and what China is building is boring in exactly that way. So here's what I'll leave you with. The world's financial architecture is being rewired. Not someday, right now. Every time a yuan transaction clears through CIPS, every time a country joins a currency swap network, every time oil gets priced in yuan, the foundation shifts slightly. Small shifts compound. Optionality becomes preference. Preference becomes standard. And one day, we'll look back and realize the dollar's dominance didn't end with a bang. It ended with 1,000 quiet transactions that nobody was paying attention to. If you found this valuable, if this changed how you see the global economy, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Because this kind of deep analysis, the kind that connects infrastructure to power, the kind that shows you what's happening before it becomes obvious, this is what we do here. Most financial news gives you surface-level headlines. We give you the architecture, the systems, the patterns that shape what's coming next. We're tracking the yuan's rise in real time. We're documenting every currency swap agreement, every CIPS milestone, every digital yuan expansion. We're talking to central bankers, trade officials, and economists who see what's coming. And we're breaking it down, so you don't need a PhD in economics to understand why it matters. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because the next stage of this story is already unfolding, and you don't want to miss it. The dollar's dominance lasted 80 years. What comes next will define the next century, and you're watching it happen in real time. Don't be the person who looks back in 5 years and says, "I wish I'd paid attention." Be the person who saw it coming. Subscribe now. Let's watch history together.